Previously in X-Men, welcome tonight. This is a different episode. Chris has been kicked off the show and he's been sent out east on vacation. So we're not going to see Chris standing in tonight, which is heartbreaking to me, but it gives me an opportunity to do something different. So tonight I'm going to be working on a sketch cover. So that's a comic book with a blank, well, it's printed with the logo and the rest of it is blank, and it gives people like me an opportunity to draw on them and then get them out into the world in any way that I can. So it's just a fun chance for, that's not a thumbs up, everybody. That's just me holding it. So I'm going to be working on this cover tonight, and I'll have two cams going, one so that you can see a little more up close and just have a conversation with you. And if you want to talk Deadpool and Wolverine with me or anything X-Men in general, I am so happy to do that. Or just talk about drawing process, which is probably where my mind will go as I'm working, as I'll probably start. I'm pretty anxious about doing this on camera, just because this is not something I do every day. And I've been terrified to work on sketch covers because it feels like a very permanent act. And the first one I got to do, it was gifted by a store in West Virginia, a really cool store called Four Color Fantasies. They gave me a Logan cover, and I got home and I worked on it, and I ruined it. And I'm really embarrassed by the work that I did, but I loved the idea. And that was maybe about 4 years ago or so. And then at a Toronto Fan Expo in Toronto, someone commissioned me to do one. And I, fake it till you make it. Like, oh yeah, I can do this, no problem. And I got to do a fun Blade Runner. So I got to, take it home that night from the convention, bring it back the next day, and do a fun marker colored Blade Runner cover. And then maybe a year later, I got to do a Captain America one, which I really enjoyed. And you can probably see those on my Instagram somewhere. And then people kept giving me these sketch covers and saying like, hey, here's just a free blank book. Feel free to do one. And my stack has been piling up. And I was at an event a couple weeks ago at Heroes World in Richmond Hill, Ontario, where I live. And there was a Miles Morales Spider-Man one. So I was like, let me just give this a shot. And so I took it home that night, brought it back the next day, did some marker on it, had a lot of fun drawing Miles Morales, and said, okay, let's kick this phobia or whatever it is. Here are this anxiety. And so just work through it. And so maybe later on that week, I did a G.I. Joe Scarlet cover, which was a lot of fun to do. And then the next day, okay, let's do another one, do a fun Batman one. So, getting these out of my system and trying something that I find stressful is a good thing for an artist to do, I think. I think when it comes to creative work, you should always run toward the thing that makes you scared. Not in real life. Don't do that, because traffic is dangerous and scary and you shouldn't be running into traffic. But when it comes to making art, if there's something that you don't think you're good at or something that causes you some stress, that's where you're going to grow, is in those areas. So run toward it. So what better time to work on some Deadpool and Wolverine art than at the dawn of their movie coming out. Here it comes out Thursday night. I hope that you, if you are a fan, get a chance to go see that movie too. Looks like it's going to be fantastic. And, all of us X-Men fans who, of course, if you're tuning into this channel, you've got to be an X-Men fan, I assume. So it's sort of a really great time to see some fun cameos, and almost 25 years in the making to get a version of X-Men where it's really just play. The last two Deadpool movies have been pretty playful too, but the fact that this one gets Wolverine in it is like, okay, now this feels like something really special. So I'm very excited. I'm going to go see it Thursday night. Of course, our buddy Chris is traveling with his family, so who knows when he's going to get a chance to see it. And I can't wait to get on camera with him and talk to you all about that. This should be a blast. So I'm going to be working on a cover for it's Wolverine and the X-Men #1. This came out a few years back, 2011, so it's 13 years old. I probably picked this one up at a convention. I saw it, on someone's table for a couple bucks and thought I can work on that. Or it was gifted to me by a friend or family member as something to work on. I did start drawing on it. You can see there's the glare is pretty intense. Let me see if I It almost looks like at some point I didn't do any of it, but you can see there are some pencil lines on there already. Yeah, see, I didn't do it. Everything's starting just tonight. I haven't touched it at all, but there you go. So I'm working on an image of Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's fun for me to try. It's something new. So I do like drawing both characters. I've drawn Wolverine more than Deadpool. I've only drawn Deadpool maybe 2 or 3 times, but drawing Wolverine is a joy, and I find very challenging, especially getting his mask the way I like, because different artists that we've seen, if you've been watching the show, different artists interpret his mask in different ways. So that should be interesting to try different things. But I wanted to get the penciling done so that by the time we're here together, I can work in ink so that it really shows up on camera, because pencil can disappear under the lights and depending on how the cameras are set up. We're in my studio. This is probably the tidiest angle I can get. My display of X-Men figures are falling down as my family walks through, and my dog pounces around. He knocks over. And of course, if a figure falls on the floor, it's gone. He got pyro a few weeks back, and I'm still brokenhearted. He did get a Wolverine once upon a time. But luckily, another one got released, like another version of the yellow suit Wolverine got released. So my chewed up one is retired, but it's okay. He got replaced. So this is probably the tidiest angle. I've got my trusty drawing board here that I've had since probably 1988 or so. I've got a really fun set of Copic markers that I can pull from when it's time to color this work, and I do expect to color it. I don't think I'll color it tonight, but I think I'll just get the black and white ink, or I should say the black ink, done tonight with a little bit of white as well. What else is in here? Some posters that were given to me, luckily, by some lovely family members. Maybe my favorite comic book cover of all time, Captain America Annual 8, with our buddy Wolverine right there fighting Cap, by Mike Zeck, and I got that print from Mike at Toronto Comic Con 2019 or so. This is The Thing, drawn by John Romita Sr. I was fortunate enough to meet him when I was a little kid, and he drew that for me. And why on earth I did not ask him for a Peter Parker Spider-Man split face. That would have been the perfect one to get from him, and maybe I will draw that one day myself and put it up so I can look at it. I'll copy one of his. There's a Beatles album. I think it's the Hey Jude record. Over here, some Canadian artists that I love, some original art as well as some prints, and some posters from some comic festivals that I've been happy to visit or participate in, and then lots of graphic novels. And the artist ones are just like there. Get some artist editions, as well as the artisan and art books are all kind of there, but we're not going to do too much more of a studio tour at the moment. There's a huge mess over this way that you can't see. Boxes piled, papers piled. And I guess I could, there's drawers full of craft stuff that I got to sort through and get rid of most of it. And a few boxes of, short boxes of comics that I feel the need to have by me as I work every day. So it's at least half the studio that you can see. The other half is desk, computer stuff, printer, scanner, other fun stuff like that. But other than that, I hope you're well. I did say in the chat that if you want to come on and get on camera or just do voice and chat with me while we work, I'm happy to have you on. I realize now that like the account that I would have to look, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to see it over here. I'd have to leave StreamYard, the service I'm using for streaming. I'd have to leave it to check on that Instagram account. So if you did put a message in there, let me know here in the chat that you did, if you don't mind, and then I'll take a minute and take a look. Allie, how you doing? She says, ooh, pretty art box. I never saw a Wonder Woman. So that is Darwin Cook's Wonder Woman from a Justice League cover. I think maybe, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 2013 or so, he did like 30 DC, 35 DC comic book covers for a particular month. And he did a whole bunch that year. And one of them they did was a Justice League, and I believe it was widescreen, it was horizontal. And so that's just that art printed onto a decorated short box. And when I saw that, I mean, Darwin Cook is my favorite artist, and I mean, who doesn't love Wonder Woman? So that was a no-brainer. I've often thought about decorating, like either printing up some old comic book pages from like some Jack Kirby art, and then cutting up the printed ones that I print off. I wouldn't cut up some real old comics, and then maybe gluing them onto a box to create a collage of Kirby art on the outside. But I've started to allocate my books by creator as opposed to by title with certain things. So all my Darwin Cook comics are together. All my Jack Kirby comics are together. My Arthur Adams comics are together. My Mike Mignola comics are together. And so maybe when I have those themed boxes, I'm kind of in the mood to have them decorated a tiny bit just to make it more fun than just looking at plain white boxes. I'm going to add the screen where the comic book is, and we can start going from there. Let's see. That's not good. That's better. So you get a little bit of me there, and then my legs. So the camera angle might shift a little bit as I go. I got to find a nice, happy space for the book and for me, because it is kind of in the way. There you can see what I've been working on. And I'm, transparency here, I'm starting to experience some vision loss close up when I wear glasses. So when I take my glasses off, I can see crystal clear up close, but then of course I lose my distance. So like I'm at that stage where I need bifocals with the bottom half empty. So sometimes I'll be flipping my glasses up and I'm going to hit my head on my phone. It's going to be a good, embarrassing time. But again, what else are you going to do on a Tuesday night? If we can't go see Wolverine Deadpool, might as well just do this. So I'm going to start by probably maybe outlining my characters with some ink. And normally I would use a lively line. I like brush lines on the outside of characters, and I'm debating if I want to just go, Micron number 5 and keep the line art really dead, or keep it lively. So I'm in a bit of a Mike Mignola phase, and artists like Mignola and Mazzucchelli, those kinds of guys. Batman Year One, if you haven't read that, or Daredevil Born Again, or any of the Hellboy stuff on Mignola's side. They use their outlines of characters are not lively brush lines that go from thick to thin. They are it's known as like a dead line or a dumb line, as it doesn't waver. And I think it's just gorgeous. I'm not sure if it's a line for my voice. But you know what? Why don't we just start there, because I can always undo it by adding brush line later. So I'm going to just kind of flesh out these forms for a little bit. And if I mean, you're not going to be able to tell me when I do drift off screen. I'm going to have to check every once in a while to see how I'm doing, but I expect myself to fall away once in a while. Sean, how you doing? Thanks for joining us here tonight. Michael, you as well. Hope you're doing well, and Ali, of course, thanks for being here too. If you want to talk about, why don't you let me know what your favorite X-Men movie is so far, and if you're excited to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. So I'm headed with 2 of my oldest friends to go see Deadpool and Wolverine on Thursday, and I'm very excited about that. I really love hanging out with those guys. They've known me my whole life, and going to the movies and having a laugh after a long day is always a pleasure with both of them. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And we've had a lot of good memories going to other movies together over the years, as far back as, I'm going to say, Return of the Jedi and Temple of Doom. I remember going with one of my friends to go see that. So we're going to be together again, going to see Deadpool and Wolverine. I think he and I also saw the first Deadpool movie together. So That will be a fun thing to do, to go see with my buddies. One of the worst things about drawing in ink is like when you don't get the line you want. And, if let's say the pen gets a little flush at the end, or it just doesn't give you what you're looking for, it happens. And I actually can go back in after, like anyone can. One can go back in after with a little bit of white media to tidy it up. And I probably will. So we'll see if I want to change anything. I have to watch out for smudging, so I'm going to be moving around a little bit, trying to avoid areas that I think might still be wet. And I'm also noticing that I'm excited, so my line is like jaggedy, a little jaggedy. But that's just my nerves. So usually before I would ink, I warm up for a long time. I draw something that is fun and easy and repetitive. I just get a flow going with my hand feeling relaxed and all that. But time of day makes a difference. If you're tired from work or if you're angry about something. So inking is a really fun task, but also one that I find for me requires me to exercise a little bit of my emotional intelligence, if I have any, so that I'm in a good state when I do it. And boy, oh boy, when you're not, or when I'm not, it really suffers. So just trying to figure out the outlines mostly. And I'm thinking a little bit about what I'm drawing, like a tiny bit about, are the shapes things I like, and are these things organic or inorganic? So if I'm drawing more metal or something like that, I might change the way I handle my line a tiny bit. But right now we're just outlining, and I'm going to use a few different weights. I know I mentioned before about a deadline or dumb line. But I find that the number 5 gives me a line that I like the weight of enough. But I'm going to use my 5 for exterior, like form and shape, like the anatomy of Deadpool. That line didn't come out nice. Like his body parts. But then when it comes to, let's say, costume lines and stitching and cross hatching and stuff, I'll switch to a smaller pen nib. My favorite X-Men movie is Logan, hands down. I do like, as much as I criticize the change in superheroes to the dark and whatever, when it comes to the movies, I like to take them seriously. I like the fun ones too, but I messed that one up. Sometimes you get stuck in the pencil groove. If I push too hard, my pen jumps into the tracks laid by the pencil, so it goes the wrong way. But so I like my superhero movies to be intense and emotional and serious. So things like The Dark Knight resonate with me more than something lighter. But then I also like a lot of the fun Marvel movies too. But with Logan, I just had all the feelings. All the feelings. Hey, can you let me know, are you able to hear me okay? My microphone is all the way over there, and I'm all the way over here, so I'm not sure if you hear me all right. Michael says, is it easier to do with the title already in place, or do artists just know to plan for it on a blank page? Okay, so are we talking about a sketch cover, or are we talking about a real comic book cover? Because that's two different things, and I'm happy to address both. Michael, with a sketch cover, you don't have a choice usually with what you're given. Often these are commissions or things that people have requested of you, so you get whatever you're given. In this case, I whited out some of the space for Wolverine. I can bring this closer to the camera and you can see. I applied white media in the area where I knew Wolverine was going to be, on both Chris Bachalo's last name and on the bottom of that X. I like when characters interfere with the logo, especially if it's something dynamic. So with this one, I planned in advance what I wanted to draw because I'm in what I would consider a high pressure drawing situation. So I went through a few different iterations on paper. Um, I like worked in my sketchbook and tried something small. The characters were like the same size, and my son said that doesn't look like a very cool cover. I'm like, I know, it's hard. Give me a break. So I tried a few different versions, and eventually got to the point where I wanted Deadpool to be much larger and to create more dynamics and more depth. So I did plan the cover out in advance, and then I spent too much time trying to lay the characters onto this page in pencil before I started inking. And of course, I will see 100 flaws in it, but that's the thing is like, I'm never going to do it perfectly. So if I wait for my art to be perfect, nothing will ever get done. And I'll do better with, it serves me better to get a piece done and get it out there and learn from it, even with mistakes included, than it does to sit back and criticize my half-finished art. So I almost always try to just push past the things that irk me and make me feel ashamed or sad or whatever it is, push past the feelings, just get the work done. So that's in place, title, moving on. When it comes to the like real comic book art, and I don't mean to explain it for you if you already know about how comic books are drawn traditionally, the art, especially back, in the stuff we've been reading on previously in X-Men, so we're talking 1986, the art gets drawn on 11 by 17 comic artboard, and then a photostat, like a photocopy of the logo at the right size, is literally pasted onto the original inked drawing at, in all the right positions. The corner box is pasted on, all the verbiage is pasted on, in this case, with like John Romita Jr.'s art. And then it is photographed and, at that state with everything on it. So they don't place everything on until after it's been inked, but the artist knows to leave enough room, and they can take that photostated or photocopied logo and guess what space they want to not draw in. So if they wanted to, have, in this case, Wolverine up there, they would know that they're going to have to break the logo, and they would have to probably ask permission from their editor. So can I break the logo for this? And in this case, I don't imagine that an editor would have a problem with that particular egregious break in the logo. I hope that answers your question. Is it easier to do with the title already in place? No, I find it cramps creativity, so I often will draw without it there and then transfer it in. But I like to do digital mock-up, so I'll play with it a little bit and see if it works with the logo, see if it works without the logo, and play. It's a lot of fun to do that. Ali says, first class is my fave. I was pretty annoyed with the hodgepodge of characters and messing with the timelines. Yeah, me too, Ali. Plus, I'd never heard of Michael Fassbender, as you may have noticed. I'm partial to Magneto. Yeah, the idea that, Banshee, Charles Xavier, and Mystique, I'm like, oh no. I really wanted to see the original 5 characters, or just like what happens before they become X-Men. So even Moira, Magneto, obviously Charles Xavier, if it had been Gabby Haller, Legion's mom, that would have been fine too. I would be happy with stuff before they become X-Men, and then see him recruit the kids, but have the adults who are, of combat age doing something adventurous while the children are training. I'd be cool with that too. But it's a fun movie. It has a really good vibe to it. Ali continues and says, I was worried about how he'd be portrayed. I did not have worried. It was awesome. And showing Xavier as a jerk was great. My audio was a little warbly at the very top of the stream, but you're clear and steady enough. Thank you, Ali. Michael says, there's no pressure here. Yeah, well, the pressure is, I impose it upon myself. Happy to have pressure. It drives me. So it's not something that inhibits me from moving forward. It's just something I feel and acknowledge and know to work around. Ali says, this is cool new information for me. Share away. And yeah, break that logo. Thank you. I will continue to break that logo. I really don't mind the pressure. Like it is part of the fun. I'm also not even though I've been, reading comics and enjoying action movies since I was a kid, we're talking 70s and 80s, I'm not a guns guy. I don't think I've ever held a firearm, or definitely I've never fired any. And I don't spend a lot of time thinking about guns. The kid in me definitely loves all that stuff. I used to really enjoy the role play of going in the forest with a water gun and, imagining I was on Endor or whatever it was, the forest moon of Endor, all that fun stuff. So I had the regular, kid fantasy stuff around guns. But when it comes to my real experience with them, or lack thereof, I find that it gets in the way of drawing them, because I don't really know what they're like. And I have held some World War I rifles. There's photo evidence out there in the world of Chris holding them, but I don't know if there's any photos of me. Just how I like it. But what I'm trying to say is drawing guns is hard. That's what I'm trying to say. It takes me a long time to get to my point. So I'm leaving it to the end. I've got Deadpool holding two pistols, I guess, and I don't really know what kind of guns they are, which is a bad thing. When you draw something, you're actually supposed to know how that thing is built, and what it's made out of, how it's composed, and that way you communicate your knowledge of that thing through your art. So that being said, I just made another wobbly line and all that fun stuff. So that being said, when it comes to, let's say, the human form, the human body, when you know what, let's just say, a forearm feels like, and you know where the muscles are, it's communicated through the way you draw it. And the people who really know how a forearm is built, they usually draw it way better because they actually know what's there. Like, same as when someone explains things verbally. You can see what they know and what they don't know through the way they communicate. So my lack of understanding of guns really comes out in my drawing of guns. And I probably should get a really good book, and I probably should take any opportunity to safely hold some guns somewhere in the world. Will help my art. Now, that doesn't mean you can't draw from imagination. I mentioned Mike Mignola before, and obviously Mike Mignola completely understands how Hellboy is put together without ever having touched a Hellboy in real life, but that's because he understands it beyond, touch and sight. He understands in his mind, very much in depth. And that could be something if I invent a gun or another weapon, that might be the case, but I'm usually drawing things that are supposed to be kind of, real, as opposed to imaginary Liefeldian weapons, which are just kind of super soakers anyway. But let's not get into that. And when you understand how something is put together, then you also can develop your own shorthand, like way of expressing it with your style, with less line or less detail. You don't have to have everything. Oh, well, there you go. It's coming along. So yeah, definitely one of the things I need to work on, my weaponry. So I do have a few, like, my Marvel Legends action figures. I have a few of those guns kicking around in my studio for reference, but I don't think they're very accurate or well regarded in that respect. So I could do a lot better. And now with photo reference, like an artist using Photoshop, for instance, we can take a gun from a photograph and obviously import that photograph into your Photoshop file so that you're literally tracing it. Or you could take it, crop it really closely, and put a filter on it to turn it into line art so that it blends in with your work. So you can do quite a few things, especially with the 3D modeling out there. You can use fake guns quite easily. But for something like this, I would have to do a little bit more research, and I didn't do any for this, other than getting a couple of Deadpool action figures from my collections room in the basement so that I got his costume close, because I wanted it to at least somewhat resemble Deadpool's actual comic book costume, or one of them. So I switched to a smaller tipped felt tip pen. This is the number 1. And so it's going to just give me, I'll use it for touch-ups and interior lines. So like stitches on his clothing, or stitching on his clothing, costume details, as opposed to the heavier line, which is, his outside. Normally when I draw, I really try to focus on finding all the areas that are like the highest contrast, the deep shadows. And I like drawings with a lot of black on them. And me probably getting away from that might be like my downfall today, is that I'm not doing things the way I normally do. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. I also really like the idea of doing like a juggling act where I might not survive this. So it's kind of fun. Okay, let me see. If I have messages here. Chris as well, he's gone to bed now. Cool. And he wants to know how the live stream is going. So I'm going to say in it now. Give him a smiley face. But he's on a well-deserved vacation. So, and then I chat on Messenger. Oh, dude. Kevin from Toying Around has just found some Alpha Flight figures from, I guess, the early 2000s, perhaps. And he's just showing me a picture. That's cool. Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Chris. Hope everyone is good. So you can see that. So I usually would spend more time in the sketching stage, really messing around with heavy shadows and more dramatic lighting. I like dual lighting, and I would spend, like I said, more time drawing and figure out my idea more before I started inking. But even though Michael says, was it Michael? Yeah, he says no pressure here. No, there was pressure. I said I was going to do this, so I had to make sure I could. And that meant changing the way I do it so that I'm on time, roughly, and able to do this in front of you fine folks. So I drew a mouth for Deadpool, so I know how open his chin is, like how much lowered his chin has gone down. But I'm gonna we're gonna wait and see. A lot of times with art, I end up kicking the can down the curb, meaning that I don't know how to do something just yet, so I delay and draw something else instead. So we shall see. Yeah, Logan being my favorite X-Men movie. I really, really love the Wolverine stuff. I'm a huge fan, of course, of his trip to Japan in the Frank Miller, Chris Claremont limited series. And so I really wanted that movie to just be the best thing ever, and it was not. The third act, where he fights a CGI Silver Samurai, was disappointing for me. And that whole movie has kind of carried that stink since then. I've come around on Silver Samurai as an antagonist. I'm going to say something controversial, but I often think about things as being iterations. Like, each Robin is an attempt at, in a way, an attempt at creating the same character, just in ways that suit the time period, like ways that might be appropriate for the era in which it's being communicated. So the idea of an orphaned circus performer living with Bruce Wayne, that doesn't work in the 21st century. So you get a character like Damian, where it's actually, his son by birth. And so I often in my head think about a character like Damian. I think, okay, it's just Robin. It's the same. It's someone reinterpreting the Robin mythos for the times in which we live. So that being said, I think about that My Beloved Wolverine Goes to Japan limited series from the early 80s. And then maybe like the biggest problem with that from a superhero point of view was there wasn't an iconic supervillain that comes out of that series. Does that make sense? Like, it's not Batman and the Joker and you get the Joker again. It's Batman fighting a ninja master and he kills him at the end. Of course, it was Wolverine, but you know what I'm saying. That Wolverine doesn't get, like, his debut series doesn't give him an arch rival. And the idea, like, Shingen, I thought was a really great character. I love everything about that book, but it doesn't end with there being a commodity. That's what I'm trying to say. So sometimes I like to think about what's a better marketing product, what's a better tool for, in this case, Marvel, when they have that series. So at the end of it, you get a dead ninja clan leader, a dead member of, not the Yakuza. What was he part of? Was it the Hand? So they don't get any IP from it. It's sort of like not a waste, but someone in marketing might look at it that way. And so Silver Samurai, who is one of the antagonists from the second time Wolverine goes to Japan with the X-Men in what, like 172, 173, then you get Silver Samurai, and it feels like, this is the idea that he's Shingen's illegitimate son, Mariko's illegitimate brother. He's now, from his point of view, the rightful heir to that family title. And because he is a supervillain, he wears this armor. He is an IP. Like he's a character that you can have as a reoccurring supervillain till the end of time. That he's almost like a better version of what maybe they could have / should have done in the original Wolverine Limited series. Like maybe if Shingen had worn that armor or whatever, or called himself the Silver Samurai, whatever it might have been. Like when we retell things, you make these tweaks to it, these adjustments to make it a more memorable and more legendary story so that it lasts forever. And I would say, if you look back at the last 40 years, like kids from the 90s don't know Shingen. They know Silver Samurai. So it kind of worked. So the idea of putting it in the movie, that might have been the right idea. But I liked the dynamic of, anyway, it's hard to explain. I don't really know what I'm trying to say. The movie was close, but that third act stunk. Yeah, it stunk. Michael says, I thought the first Wolverine movie didn't capture the emotion of the miniseries well enough. Definitely not. The first Wolverine movie is called X-Men Origins Wolverine, and it didn't capture enough of Weapon X. It didn't capture enough of any of the Wolverine pieces. It tried probably to do too many things, and I don't know. It wasn't a very entertaining movie. And of course, the portrayal of Deadpool, right? That's his first appearance in film. Is an X-Men Origins Wolverine, and it's an awful version of Deadpool. It's the Merc with the mouth actually doesn't get to speak, which is crazy in the last half of the movie. Ali says, I'm delighted that you're doing this. I love what you said about just do it even if it's not perfect. Oh, perfect is an impossibility for every artist. So you have to move forward even if it's not perfect. And super impressed that you can do this live, owning the nerves, both admitting and pushing on. Hey, I'm not a little kid, like this is me being scared to ride a bike is part of every day. So it's not going to stop me. I feel like I might be alone and enjoying. Oh, no. X-Men Origins Wolverine. I think I always put a big asterisk here. There's a huge difference between enjoying something and thinking it's good. So, for instance, I enjoy McDonald's, but McDonald's is not good. Sorry to tell you, it's not only bad for you, but every part of it is not the best quality of whatever whatever the item that you're eating. It's not the good version of it. So, from top to bottom, you can like it. You have my permission. I like those things too, but none of them are actually good. So I think we can all like things that are shit, and that's your prerogative. That's part of the fun. I've probably watched that movie more times than I want to admit. I definitely don't think it's good. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the times we're reading X-Men comics that I don't think are good, but I still like them. And that opens up a lot for me, because I think when people like something, that's great. Like, go enjoy. Nothing wrong with enjoying something. This isn't really working. Trying to give some thickness to his bands, but once you start making, I don't know, let's move away from that. Let's start figuring out some of his muscles, and I'll render those things. In general, I mean, with X-Men Origins Wolverine, for instance, you're getting Hugh Jackman on screen, right? And anytime you get to watch Hugh Jackman be Wolverine, it's kind of just enjoyable, because he's awesome, which is really the reason we're all so excited, I think, about the new movie. We get to see Hugh Jackman again, which is so cool. I don't like him in any other role, in anything else. I just like him as Wolverine. Sorry, Hugh. And when it comes to Deadpool, does anyone have a favorite of the two that we've seen so far? Which one did you like better? The first one is probably a classic, right? I mean, it's such an enjoyable movie. It does take a while, just obviously, to get his origin, and I really like the way that they decided to give us the character in action off the top, so that we get time with him before his origin is fully explained, because I think otherwise it would be pretty boring. And I find watching him suffer, I don't enjoy. So him in that glass case being abused, I find it bothers me. I don't like that. But while he's Deadpool, I'm very, very happy all the time. I still can't believe these movies even exist. That's partially, I think, where and when I come from. These things just were not a possibility. Comics were something that I experienced mostly by myself. Very few friends that were reading comics. My friends were mostly into sports or toys, but I was very much, obviously, into comics. It was a pretty solitary interest. Allie says, and remember the tumult in 2000 about Hugh being cast, this tall, slender Australian to play a short, grizzly Canadian. Now he's iconic. Yeah, for sure. We should always be ignoring what everyone's talking about when it comes to things that, like manufactured outrage. All those examples, whether it's the Heath Ledger as Joker. I mean, I remember the fuss about Michael Keaton being cast as Batman in the newspaper and with my friends. No one could believe that it was going to be the case, but for a lot of people, it's quintessential. So I don't really pay any mind to that stuff. Of course, I think we've probably mentioned before, and I know this isn't news to anyone, Hugh Jackman was not actually the original person cast as Wolverine for the X-Men franchise. For the first film, it was another Australian actor, friend of Hugh Jackman, an actor by the name of Doug Ray Scott, who you might know if you're a Mission Impossible fan like I am. He was the antagonist in Mission Impossible 2, which is, I believe, where he got hurt and was unable to then play Wolverine. Doug Ray Scott also played Batgirl's father. No, well, yeah, was it Batgirl? No. I'm already forgetting what show it was. You're going to have to help me out here. Batwoman. He played Batwoman's father on the Batwoman TV show that was on the CW, I guess a couple years back. And he had like the look for Wolverine. Yeah, he was a smaller guy, and he just had that. He had the same face that Hugh Jackman can make. We're bringing those eyebrows down and having that snarl. So it was. He would have been probably fine, but who knows? What tool have I moved on to? Yeah, this is a Tombow brush pen. I love these things to fill in. I usually draw with them almost exclusively. Like, I'm not really a pen. I like the brush pen, so I use this one. There usually comes in a pack of 2. Let's see if here's my other one. So one is a little more purple. I don't know if you can get in the light. And this one's more green. And this one has a bigger brush tip and it's more flexible. This one has a smaller brush tip and it's less flexible. But for filling in the blacks like that, yeah, you don't want to be using a pen. You want to switch to a brush. And I love the no tidy up, so I switch to those right away. I use the Tombow brush pen all the time. And my other brush pen that I use a ton is that one. This is good question. What brand is this? Pentel. A Pentel brush pen. I'll show you. Look at that thing. It's a good brush tip, and it comes with cartridges inside. And again, no fuss, no muss, no cleanup, which is a big bonus for me. Ali says, I also like the casting of Jackman. I also like that the casting of Jackman didn't change Wolverine's appearance in the books. Unlike some other characters that I won't stew about, I don't know if we agree on this, Ali. I thought that Jackman being cast as Wolverine changed the way that they drew Wolverine in the Ultimate X-Men books. I thought they made him taller. They made him a bit of a heartthrob, and changed his hair to make it less stylized. I don't have a better word for how to describe Wolverine's hair. I don't want to say it's ridiculous, but they changed it. Maybe that's not what you're getting at. I'm not sure. I'm in dangerous territory here. I'm having trouble seeing it, truthfully. And I want to get close to the paper and go in front of the camera, but that's not going to be a good idea. So some of his eye, I don't know if you can see here, his masks, parts of it need to be left white, even if it's not the white of his eye, because I'm going to create a highlight on his brow. And I need to, so it will look weird when I fill it in black. It will look like he has a double eye, but when it's colored, it'll start to look better. Perhaps. And this shenanigan here, I need to create the illusion of depth on his mask. So having some parts that are in that highlight, but will get colored in when it does go to color, when I add marker, after the ink cures all the way. It'll be, I guess, a blue highlight in this case. on his mask. I'll probably look at some references to help me with that. When it comes to Wolverine's mask, I favor, of course, Arthur Adams. So we'll take a look at some different versions to get it right. Well, have you experimented with dip pens? Yes, and I've experimented with dip pens on camera. I haven't found one that I love yet, but again, it requires a little bit more care. So it's definitely more economic to use a dip pen. The nibs don't wear out if you take good care of them, but you have to take good care of them. And I'm not a person that takes good care of things. I almost would rather have one less thing to worry about and be wasteful and throw out pens every few months than have to. Okay. Yes, I don't take care of things nicely like my art supplies. But secondly, I get interrupted all the time. So if I'm starting and stopping, it doesn't really work best with brush and dip pen. You kind of need to have a session where you have hours and hours to really be productive and repeat the task and get fast and again, not have any interruptions. I find that is a tough thing for me. So I find these let me work on the go, and again, no fuss, no muss, no tidy up. So I like that. But I do love the idea of being a classical comic book artist where I work with brush and dip pen, and my work looks classic, but I haven't built up that discipline yet. And I've only probably put in, let's just say, 15 hours with the dip pen as opposed to a lifetime with the pencil. So we'll get there. I'll work with it a little bit more. And Ultimates doesn't count. That was a horrible fever dream that we all survived. Hey, you know what? I'm sure someone out there that's their favorite version of X-Men. It isn't mine. I probably read the first trade or maybe the first two, and I didn't need a second continuity. When it came to that moment in time, I was much more interested in the Grant Morrison run, and then the Joss Whedon and John Cassidy run. So those weren't a big deal to me. I didn't really fuss too much about that. See, now here I have a problem. Okay. With Wolverine's mask and his tiger stripe thing on his shoulder, I can't have black and the black. So we're going to mess around with it. And I'll just put a little bit of black in. And then it will it'll be blue, basically. And it's just going to be what it's going to be. Another thing I could do is make his mask. I need to keep those things distinct. So, actually, I wonder how well marker's going to work on this, considering I put some white media down. We'll see. My instincts always with these kinds of drawing in ink is really to go stark black and white, like Mignola, and have things at really high contrast and highly stylized. But it doesn't really suit X-Men all the time. But if I get enough, if I figure out how I want like really dramatic lighting coming off that pistol fire, then it might light Wolverine in a fun way. We'll see. I'll keep playing with it. Michael finds you funny, Allie. I do too. Eddie says, Emmys, Shogun, and X-Men 97. Yeah, man, what a year. I throw onto that list also, on my behalf, please, throw on there Blue-Eyed Samurai. So I found I had a really fun year for loving things with Japanese influence in them, in a North American way. So I loved Shogun. I read the book as a younger man and never watched the Richard Chamberlain series, but I'm very much interested in feudal Japan. Probably started with, if you think about it, all the properties that I enjoy from my childhood were very heavily influenced by things Japanese. So I've noted, of course, and I'm sure you have too, that a lot of the characters we love had a relationship with Japan in some way, like G.I. Joe Kid, right? So Snake Eyes has a transformative experience with his time in Japan as a ninja, with his pal Tommy. Batman has a transformative experience in Japan as he trains. Wolverine has a transformative experience with Japan. This is a trope in Western writing, right? That we make it exotic, and it has problems with this idea as well. But I'm looking at it more just from the reality of what happened, not trying to think about why it's like that, but just the fact that it did happen like that for the media I enjoyed as a kid. So, Wolverine, Batman, and Snake Eyes all had profound experiences in Japan. And that meant as a kid, okay, that it's very much on my radar. Combined with, of course, the influence of Kurosawa movies and Japanese samurai culture on George Lucas, and how much of that went into Star Wars, which was another huge influence on me. It was like inevitable that I'd be interested in feudal Japan. And there was a huge, for those of you old enough, there was a huge ninja craze in the 80s with, like, remember that movie American Ninja? It was just a huge, and then of course the Ninja Turtles. I mean, that was, but that was, the comic book did not reach me until it was already really famous. So I wasn't aware of it very much until like the movies and cartoon. But what I'm trying to say is that also then the anime coming out in the 70s, we were getting things like at the end of the 70s, a show, I always forget what it's called. It wasn't, well, Battle of the Planets and Star Blazers, Robotech or Macross, Astro Boy, like Japanese culture had made its way here. And it was really, really interesting. It was super cool. So no surprise that people like me growing up, and even in Toronto, we would be always interested in things Japanese. So when Wolverine has his journey there, and Snake Eyes and Batman, I'm 100% in. It was a no-brainer. So that all being said, this year having Shogun, Blue Eye Samurai, as being these shows I get to kind of watch every week. I was also watching, which is much more Japanese, I was watching Tokyo Vice on HBO, Crave up here in Canada. So every week I was spending a lot of time in Japan, and it was a fun year for that. It's hard to watch Tokyo Vice and draw comics because subtitles, and Shogun too. So there were things I actually had to sit and watch, and I'd make my breakfast or whatever and sit and actually pay attention to the show, which became a very different way for me to watch than the way I would do where I'm drawing here and looking at my screen or listening. Same with X-Men 97. That was a must-see TV for my daughter and I. We'd wake up before school every week and watch it, as we will again. Can't wait for season 2 and 3, which have been greenlit. So we will be getting much more X-Men 97. But we already kind of knew that. I knew that those shows were not just greenlit, but they were produced already. We've talked to people who worked on them. So there was no surprise that we were going to see those, which is super cool. One of the things for anyone out there who also likes to draw, if maybe depending on your level of experience, if you haven't worked out one way to work, I've found that going back to drawing at different stages of my inking is not a bad thing. I used to really think that it was I had to separate the pieces of my work. Like, drawing happens, and when I'm done drawing, then I ink. You don't draw more. But I've found that actually quite the opposite to be true, that there's nothing wrong with your understanding of your work developing as you go and coming to certain, like needing to work certain things out at different times. It is an organic process. So sometimes I need to go back and figure more things out in pencil once I've even got my form figured out. So that's sort of what's happening right now is I'm figuring how to represent his muscle on his shoulder that's close to the camera. Yeah. And how I want to render that, how I want to turn it into black. Maybe this piece disappears. Okay. But I thoroughly enjoyed Shogun. Love that it was filmed here in Canada, of course, in British Columbia. And the performances, oh my goodness. Such a powerful show. Great characters. Everything about that show was good. There wasn't like one element that stood out as being, if they could only fix that, it was just a phenomenal piece. Not everyone's cup of tea, of course. You might find it too slow, and that's totally okay. I don't mind slow TV or a slow movie if that's what I'm expecting, right? If I know I'm going to sit there and it's going to take a while to work things out, I'm really okay with that. But if it was an X-Men movie and it's too slow, it's different. Or a hockey game. So inking is a task that still feels new to me. I did not ever. I as a kid, I drank the Kool-Aid when it came to how I understood comics to be made. I believed in assembly line comics as a child, that there were, a writer is a different person than the penciler, who's a different person than the inker, who is a different person than the colorist. And I did not really get the idea that you should, be able to do everything. But some of the best comics are made by people who do all aspects of it. And I heard someone once also say, like, when it comes to inking, don't think of it as inking, think of it as drawing in ink. And it's part of the drawing. It's, and I've grown to really love drawing in ink, but my technique is leaves much to be desired. We're getting there, bit by bit. I wonder if me being a lefty, if I'm blocking the camera too much. I think at times I am. I'm sorry. My apologies insincere. I don't really apologize for being left-handed. You should apologize for... No, I'm just joking. This almost got really dark. I almost started attacking you all for being right-handed. Creating a right-handed world that I was forced to live in. If you're right-handed, car transmissions. So when this is colored, here, let me bring that forward. So you can see his eye has, it's not just all black around his eye, but that will get turned gray. So his eyeball itself, the white part of his mask, will be separate from, but at this stage, it has to be not black ink for his features to show up. If he just has plain eyes, they don't express enough. And the movie version of Deadpool, his eyes are obviously very expressive, and they create a lot of contour, for his brow and even his eyelid. So certain things get lit, and it creates a lot more emotion for us. Allie says I'm not blocking too much. Sorry for being right-handed. I'm very jealous of you and my nephew for being left-handed. Yeah, it definitely isn't a big deal one way or the other, but I really do reap the rewards of being lefty. All the benefits that come with left-handedness, I do experience, which amounts to essentially being ambidextrous. So if I give myself a fair warm-up with just about any task, I can play guitar the other way. I can throw a ball both ways. I can write both ways and eventually draw both ways too. But again, if I give myself enough warm-up. But the downsides are that a lot of things are just set up in favor of you right-handed monsters. But playing guitar both ways, it's been a good party trick on a couple occasions. But being lefty has been awful as a musician because the instruments that I need to buy are harder to find and much more expensive. So it's kind of been not fun. This is coming along. It's getting there. It's getting there. What should we work on? This kind of drawing, also a lot of it gets figured out in the coloring stage. Like I would find where all the shadows on the red, I'm not able to do too much shadow on the red at this point, unless we'll see. But I normally would do a ton of sculpting with color. I want to do this part, given that it's underneath. I'm very excited to see Deadpool in a couple days, and I'm hoping, in terms of cameos, I'm trying to think who's like my. I think it's probably a given that we'll see Colossus at some point. Maybe is that a given that we'll see Colossus? I always like the Deadpool version of him. I think it's a lot of fun, and I really want to go dark. I'm looking at this Captain America thing behind me. The double lighting in me. I want to light him from both sides, be lit up by his gun, and also lit from the back. Let's see if I can figure this out in pencil a little bit more. So if I was to light him, double lighting, what would it be? What is this? Let's go to darker pencil. In terms of like MCU cameos, there's obviously lots of fun talk as to who might show up. I'm not sure if I need to see anybody. in my heart. I think I'm happy with. I don't expect to see any of, like, obviously Tony or Steve. That would be too much. Even for a second, I don't want them to be in it. That would make me go insane. What am I forgetting, or who am I forgetting? Who do we want to see in this movie? Is there somebody MCU that we hope shows up and blows our mind as a cameo? Michael says Colossus is my favorite part of the Deadpool movies. Yeah, he looks like Colossus. He sounds like Colossus, and he sounds big and hollow, and he's earnest. And I like sweet Peter. I think he's my favorite version of the character. I just desperately want there to be a Marvel Legends action figure of him so that he can go with Wolverine and Professor X and whoever else we're going to get, and of course Deadpool. Ali says, "Do you have any other licensed characters that you enjoy drawing?" Top go-to is Batman. I mean, Batman is my all-time favorite character in everything ever. I've been a huge fan of Batman since I was about 2 or 3, and it never wore off. I think everything I love about superheroes is embodied in Batman, and I love the idea that there are different versions of him that I find enjoyable in different parts of my life. So whether it's animated series or whatever, I really am in love with a version of Batman right now that likes to be Batman. I'm not a huge fan of the Batman thinking of his life as being a curse. I think he can go through moments of that, but I love him as a knight, as a person who has a sense of duty and is really good at his job and isn't a psychopath and isn't a fascist. Just takes his role seriously, but loves to actually enjoys being a superhero a little bit. And like, how James Bond likes to be James Bond sometimes. I'm in the mood for that with Batman, just a little bit. So brooding is okay, in those moments of the night and thinking about his whole life. But the version of Batman that thinks about his own origin all the time is a particular version, and it's a particularly modern, of course, Frank Miller, that version of him. But through the 70s, the Denny O'Neil, kind of rebranded version, he physically brooded, but emotionally he was just a very driven crime fighter, and I like that idea too. If you ever get to watch Batman Brave and the Bold, it's a cartoon that's definitely geared at kids and fans of the Silver Age. And there's something like he has a certain swagger where he loves to be Batman, and he calls his fists the hammers of justice, which is really funny. But I kind of like that idea that Batman has a bit of swagger to him. I mean, if you look at it from like a DC Comics perspective, Batman is a human being who has elevated his own status to basically walk with the gods of Olympus, right? He's found a way to put himself in that category, and it's really incredible. So he's an incredible character like that. So big fan of Batman in most iterations. Yeah. Ooh, in the Wolverine movie, Hulk, I doubt it. Yeah, there was a lot. Obviously, this photoshopped images of Mark Ruffalo's Hulk jumping into frame. I mean, that is the original Wolverine fight, is Wolverine versus Hulk and Incredible Hulk 181. So that would be the version of Hulk we have in the movies. That fight should not last very long. Hulk should just, like Juggernaut, same thing. Like, they're just so overpowered. But that would be super cool to see a moment of Hulk in there. Yeah, that would be super cool. Tom King's Batman run brought me back to comics. That's very cool. I've had trouble connecting with Tom King's stuff because I've been reading it in single issue form, and he really does write for a trade paperback or graphic novel, meaning that, I think if there's like a 12 issue miniseries, he stretches the story that each month wasn't feeling I had a satisfying read. I'll contrast this, okay, with Daniel Warren Johnson's Do a Powerbomb, or Daniel Warren Johnson's Wonder Woman Dead Earth, or Daniel Warren Johnson's Beta Ray Bill, where each month when I would get that book in my hand, I'm like freaking out, like, this is so good. And each issue was a satisfying read, and I couldn't wait to get the next one. With Tom King's, often like with his Strange Adventures series or Rorschach, I would get to the end of the issue and I'm like, did anything happen? I wasn't sure. So it's not clicking with me. But again, I could be, not doing a good job reading. So who knows? But if it's getting you reading comics, that's cool. I met Tom King at Fan Expo. We had a very short conversation about ketchup chips, which are a thing up here in Canada. Ketchup flavored potato chip, and they are delicious, of course. Eddie says, Batman 2019 reminds me. Batman 2019 reminds me, was the Batman 2004 animated? It reminds you of the Batman 2004 animated series, like The Batman, the one that came out. Yeah, it was the Batman. That was a show that was done by, the first time it was done by a different team after the Bruce Timm Warner Brothers group. It was called, yes, The Batman, and it had a theme song by The Edge from U2. And it put Bruce Wayne younger, kind of a year two version. And it was to go in, not story-wise with the Dark Knight trilogy, but was because of the promotion momentum. Like, if you're going to have a new Batman movie, let's put out a new TV show. So they kind of go hand in hand. And there are some fun things. I think that show holds up better than a lot of guys my age thought it was. Like, a lot of us were just not going to enjoy it because it wasn't Bruce Timm's work. And I think it holds up better now, like, looking back on it. It's kind of fun. Dude, Michael says, love the Aquaman Brave and the Bold. Aquaman is still probably the greatest version of Aquaman of all time. He was essentially, if you haven't watched it, he was comedic relief, and he was an amazing foil for Batman, because Batman was the hero with all the answers, who incredibly stoic, just the way I like my heroes, not smiling, not making a fuss. And Aquaman is like braggadocious, wants to sort of, Aquaman was a character who believed his own legend, and it was almost as if he was a heightened version of like a Hercules, kind of Greco-Roman Hercules character. He had a huge chin and a coif and a great beard, and he loved to tell fish stories, like to spin the yarn. And one time I was doing this and fought this, and he was really outrageous, and a great version of the character, like really lovable, and not at all the brooding version that we got in the comics, for the last 20, 30 years either. It was the exact opposite. The Aquaman in Brave and the Bold is a character who loves being Aquaman, and he was so charming and really funny. Really, really, really funny. Oh, did I just call it the Wolverine movie instead of the Deadpool movie? Pardon me. You can tell why. If it was just a Deadpool movie, I would still go see it. But yeah, Wolverine has my heart for sure, for sure. Pardon me for that. No respect, Ryan Reynolds and company. Hulk 181, Michael says, is his holy grail of comics. I do not have that issue either. Sorry, I shouldn't infer that you are saying that you don't have it. I'm saying I don't have it. It is one that I don't ever expect to get because of, obviously, the market value. But yeah, what a great comic to have in terms of its historical significance. And that cover is awesome. I did do a straight up recreation of that cover in ink, and it was so much fun to do. So much. I actually might do another one because it's just such a great image. Like, so much of it is well put together. And I contest, I don't have any proof of this yet, but I don't think Herb Trimpe drew the cover alone. I think John Romita Sr., who was the art director at the time, gets his hand in there at the inking stage. Certain things about the pose look more Romita than they do Herb Trimpe, but that's my eye, which is not an expert by any stretch. Ali says, concur. His Batman and Catwoman all but lost me until I could read it straight through and then was floored. Yeah, I think I need to get my hands on an omnibus or a trade and read it that way. The single issues just don't work with me. But again, what we expect out of books are different, right? They're as unique as some of the food we enjoy, right? Ali says, I agree on his storytelling. His Batman and Catwoman. What does LE stand for in this case? You're gonna have to help me here. His Batman and Catwoman LE all but lost me until I could read it straight through. Then I was floored. Oh, is Love Everlasting? Well, I'm collecting Love Everlasting as well, and because Elsa Chartier, the artist, is an artist I really enjoy. I think she's awesome, and she has a great YouTube channel where she breaks down some cool art stuff, and I'm buying it for her. I stopped reading it after the 3rd issue just because of the backlog, but I will get back onto it. Michael says, oh, you don't have issue 181. You and me both, buddy. We'll figure it out. If I find 2, I'll let you know. See where you are with the cover right now, where the muscle definition looks rad, and there's emotion and looks stark. This is where I would freeze up. Like adding any more ink might mess it up. Oh, for sure I'm going to mess it up. And that's actually that fear that was mentioned before. That means you have to keep going. That means that because I'm afraid to do it, that means it's exactly the thing that I need to do. Because my instinct is telling me that I'm going to ruin it. So let's ruin it. And then I'll come out the other side and nothing in my life will have changed. So it's a perfect thing to do, to mess it up. Like you have to have a little bit of that, the self-destructive nature where you have to kind of enjoy. Okay, to bring it back to Dark Knight. Time to watch the world burn. Let's ruin this thing, and then realize, of course, from it that nothing bad is going to happen. So, if you, like me, believe it already sucks, like if I come in with that attitude, like it's already ruined, so don't worry about it. There's something liberating about that, because now anything I do to it, you can't actually ruin it because it's already ruined. Or, like I said at the beginning, perfect is an impossibility. The adage, like, done is better than perfect, really rings true. It's very important that we aren't stressed about getting our work perfect, because perfectionism is like the antithesis of productivity and comic book making. You can't be perfect. Go look at your favorite comic and go look at it up close. Get it under the microscope. If you can ever find original art, you'll see none of it's ever perfect. It's full of problems. Whether we can justify or dismiss those problems because of timelines and deadlines, like when we look at, again, John Romita Jr. stuff, it's full of sort of half-rendered figures, and he finds shortcuts to things because he has to. He's getting it done. Or if you look at the opposite, where you look at Arthur Adams and Frank Quitely and Mobius, their stuff does kind of look perfect in their weird way, but each of them has their quirks too, and they would never think that their work is perfect. They would always find flaw in their work too. Yeah. Eddie says, could It's Impossible Deadpool and Wolverine actors getting the Oscar nominations? Oh, I thought that Hugh Jackman with Logan put the most, it was the most meat on the bone in terms of acting. Like, he had to do the most work in that one. And if that didn't get critical acclaim in terms of the awards, then nothing would. Then I think about it the other way, which is like, who cares what the Academy Awards say? It's becoming less and less important, I think, with each decade of my life. Like what the critics say about a movie doesn't change at all how much it impacts me. And I think getting an award is nice. And I can't speak for Mr. Jackman or Mr. Reynolds. I'm sure they would love to win, but I think they're really satisfied by making the best movie they possibly can. And they're not too worried about getting a superhero movie some recognition at the award level. You know what? Academy Awards. The more you realize, I think that it's a small. It's about the campaign that your studio puts on to get recognized, and all those other pieces. The less credibility that the entire thing has, but that's okay. So I'm feeling comfortable with some of the pencil I put down to like turn it into black and mess around with it a little bit. So let's give it a try. Jason is my new artistic motivational speaker. That is very sweet of you. If I have learned anything, in my, it's not 10 years even doing this. It's since basically 2017. If I have learned anything about making comics in that time and making more broadly, let's just say making art, it has been all the motivational stuff. It's been the philosophical stuff. Technique it's coming, and I believe in it, and it'll be there. But the things that motivate me and the having certain attitudes, that stuff has probably been the most handy. And if any of that gets passed on to Allie or anyone else, that's lovely. I'd be happy if that was the case. I do enjoy teaching. I do enjoy teaching art too, but I don't usually get to talk about things uninterrupted like this. This is pretty crazy. But yeah, there is a side of me that likes the idea of helping take away a little bit of the inhibition. See, that looks cool, right? Getting that strong blacks in there. That's my nature with comic book art. I should have leaned in that direction the whole time. Go toward what I like. My instincts aren't totally wrong. Come on, I can do this. Sometimes. So if you ever get a chance, here's what you got to do. You got to go look at the Dark Knight Returns Gallery Edition. Okay? It is put out by, I don't know. Well, DC Comics and a second publisher who makes it the big book. But you got to go look at that thing. It is the original art for The Dark Knight Returns. It has been scanned and reproduced at its original size. It is probably 19 by 12 inches, not including the hardcover, like just the artwork itself. It's a massive tome. And in it, or just watch the Cartoonist Kayfabe episodes about it, or episode singular about it, you will see how much correction fluid, if you want to call it that, how much correction fluid or white media Frank Miller and Klaus Janson apply to those pages. And you realize, like, oh, you can totally redraw anything you want, even when you're working in ink. You can go at it, put white media down on top. You can attack it again once the white media is dry. You can make changes. There are whole sections. I should probably just get it out for you. There are whole sections of that book. You know what? Let's just do that. I'll let this part dry anyway. That's looking cool. I'm okay with this. But let's take a look for 1 second at Dark Knight. Ooh. Big book. Really big book. Okay? Let's find a regular comic book to compare size. That's the difference. Okay? Regular comic book. This thing. Huge. Huge, huge. So, oh my God. And the reason I'm showing you this is so that you can, we'll adjust the camera in just a moment. Here. Look at, this is the original art for the cover of Dark Knight Returns. That amazing book. This is all Frank Miller made, okay? Lynn Varley, the painter, did the airbrush of that. But Miller just gave her this to work with. Anyway, so in this book, you'll see on pages like so. This is all white fluid that's been, white correction fluid, white media that's been added after the inking was done. Getting rid of black lines, changing shape into the negative space. Here on Bruce's head, like his hair is drawn on after with a brush and white media. There was a line across his leg that's been removed. You know, so there's a lot of details you can take off. But what I really wanted to show you, and I'll take a second to find it, as the book goes on, and Miller is starting to see the results of what goes to print and sees the result of what Varley is painting and how it looks. Here's another example of this is all Miller drew for that cover of book 3. Crazy. And of course, Varley goes on to paint that whole thing and then goes in color. But anyway, when you see what, oh my gosh, when Miller starts to see what the results are, he makes changes to the way he's asking Klaus Janson to ink. And when Janson doesn't do it, Miller goes in, I know you can't really see very much. Miller is going in on Klaus Janson's inking and changing things to put less on the page. By the way, if you've ever heard the story about Todd McFarlane getting on in this book, he talks that he got to ink this page. All the things he inked have been whited out. Like he got his hand on that, and Miller said no, or Janson erased it all. But you get the awesome face. So this is what was originally done, okay? This is not what we see in the book. This is what's on the paper. And Miller goes in and says, no, I want it like that. And so he goes and makes, if I have to separate them a little bit so you don't see what's underneath, he's doing it this way. So there's a lot less thick lines. It's much more like Mobius or, Frank Quietly, for that matter. Lighter, airier, not thick black. But when Janson originally did it, that's how he inked Miller's work. So Miller is trying to nudge him back toward a certain style. Okay. Iconic page. Look at the white media that's been applied to Batman's head. It looks like it's blue because it's aged differently than the paper. But that was all covered in ink before, and they've gone and whited it out. There was black here, whited it out. Here, I don't know what it was, maybe just a smudge. Like that line got so thick that it smudged, and so they whited out of white media. Here, on her boot, under, it was probably covered in black. It's been whited out. Behind her face, more white media. So there's a ton that you can do to correct and adjust even when your work has been done in ink. So when I sort of got my hands on this and tore through it, I'm finding it all very liberating to see what you can change. A huge jawline on Superman erased at the inking stage, right? Stuff here on Superman's leg, all erased at the inking stage. You can change it. You can make the adjustments you need to make. So now that there's no stress, no pressure, you can just go and draw and not worry. You can draw in ink and try to enjoy it. There you go. If you can get your hands on a book like this, they are excellent. They're really, really cool. Put that back here, and I'll adjust things again. Pardon me. Let me get a look at the comments, see if I missed anything. Ooh. Ali says, concur completely with the who cares what the Academy says. I haven't meshed with my interests in decades. Yeah, I still enjoy, when people get their flowers, they get their due. It's nice. But I don't think that a person like Reynolds or a person like Jackman is doing it for that result. So I also, my love of comic book movies is not going to be validated by the Academy Awards. But that's teach their own. Cool is an understatement. Are we referring to the book? I hope. The new Batman animated series comes out August 1st. Yeah, it is supposed to be, like the people involved in that new series are all the names made me really excited. So Bruce Timm, Ed Brubaker, and I think even J.J. Abrams is involved, but maybe just his money as opposed to his creativity. We'll see. But it's supposed to be 1940s, and the idea is that he's been Batman publicly for a number of weeks. So I think like Batman Week 2. So that should be awesome. Yeah, Bruce Timm is probably the artistic director and executive producer in some way. So things are, based off his style and his design. I have a white Posca white ink brush pen that I use to go in when I've really jumped the shark. I've tried using this one, and I think it must be rotten because it comes out as basically just water. I'm not getting enough thick white. Maybe I'm not using it properly. But every time I've used it, I've ruined the paper that I've been working on. Ali says, this book is incredible. Thanks for walking us through. Oh, I'm not. That's just the shallowest of dips into that pool. I mentioned before Cartoonist Kayfabe. If you have not watched that channel and you want to go on a deep dive into that book, that is a great way to do it. Cartoonist is a word we all know. Kayfabe is maybe not a word you know. It's a wrestling and like old carnival parlance, like slang. So if you type in Kayfabe, Cartoonist Kayfabe, you will find that channel, and type in Dark Knight Returns. Maybe they call it a gallery edition, which is, I think, its formal name. They might call it an artist edition. And however you feel about the hosts, we're talking about the material they're discussing. That's the focus of the conversation. I'm a fan of the show, and I probably watch at least an episode a day, and have for years now. Okay, which tool was I using before I got distracted? We got to find that one. These pencils over here, perhaps? Perhaps. Let's see. These look fine. Okay, so let's keep going with this. Messing this thing up. Let's bring that in a tiny bit. Oh, you're very familiar with wrestling, Ali says. I'm not. So when I've introduced a fair number of people to that show, to Cartoonist Kayfabe, and often the barrier in the conversation is, what word did you just say? So I'm anticipating that it's a new word for somebody. But I don't have a huge background in wrestling. I think there was a moment in time as a kid where watching WWF at the time on like a Saturday morning at maybe 11 o'clock. And when those wrestling figures came out, like there was some serious enthusiasm amongst the kids at school and that wrestling ring. And anytime you got to just, I guess we call it horseplay, like with my cousins and stuff, get a little rambunctious and throw each other around. It was fun to do. But I probably left it there. And I have a greater appreciation for it now, looking at it as a form of theater, and the idea of two titans facing off. Obviously, like our love of comics, we're all into that. The similarities between comics and wrestling are many. Theatricality, the suspension of disbelief, the heroes and villains, and the characters everyone portrays. It's there are very thought out conversations and arguments to be presented about the crossover between those two media. Correct my language, please. I need it on this one. So, but not everyone just knows the carny slang that is kayfabe. But the premise of the show, Cartoonist Kayfabe, is that the two hosts, Pittsburgh guys, two Pennsylvania boys at Piscor and Jim Rugg, are breaking down the secret process. They're gonna break kayfabe. They're gonna break the illusion, and show you how things are really done behind the scenes. And they do an amazing job of communicating how comic books get made, and how, I mean, their experience and their knowledge of printing process and all the artistic processes are phenomenal, just phenomenal. Oh, so my Posca is 8K as opposed to PCF 350. I wanted something that would cover a great deal of ground. You know, I wanted to be able to do big edits, and it has not served me well. I haven't enjoyed using it, like I said. So I will figure out how much of it's my fault as a user and how much of it is the tool. Experimenting a little more, and maybe watch a video here or there and see if I can learn anything from someone else on YouTube. Like I said, perhaps I'm making an error in the way I'm using it. Let's make that black right there too. Hey, Ali, do you remember, I guess was it the last episode? I was talking about the Trial of Magneto cover. I guess it was 2 episodes ago, and changing the color. So I played with it. I did do that, and the version I was doing got a little out of hand. But I did aggressively put Magneto in a different color scheme, so he was sort of moodily lit as if he was in a cooler and reflective sort of place, and I made the background stay hot. And I really don't know if it looks better. I don't know, but I would like to finish it to a point and share it with you. So I didn't forget about that. I did actually work on it, and it was fun to play with, for sure. I'm getting close to the part where I need to start committing to that gun. So what do I use for my white media? No, this is not working. There you go. Should I change the view? I have too many lights on in here. It is a deleter. I guess deleter white number 2. And it's all right. On Comic Artboard, it works really well. I do like it. On this, it dried okay. I put it on a little bit globby. I didn't do a great job of applying it this time. So sometimes it's like an application issue as opposed to a product issue. But that's what I use. You want to see the out-of-hand version? Okay, I'll see what I can do. I'm happy to share it with you. It's fun to play with stuff like that. So there's nothing wrong with showing some bad art, I think. My goodness. Okay, so behind here, he's gonna have some black. He's gonna have also. Do you think Wolverine's shoulder pads are metal? Are they? So that basically what I'm getting at is, are they reflective or not? Or are they matte? Because depending on the angle, he might get, like, the front edge of it is getting light as opposed to the part that's the top edge of it. I can actually pull out an action figure. So I'm thinking if he's facing this direction and the light is coming at him because of the gun, the discharge from the barrel, that underneath will get lit and the top will actually be in darkness. So I'm creating that edge here. And we'll probably take that a little further as well. But there's a gun in this hand too that he has cut into 3. And this is going to really show my my lack of understanding of how guns are put together, because I do not know at all how to draw a gun that's been cut up. So I'm going to do as much black work on it as I can to cover up the fact that I don't know how to draw it. And that's totally okay. Out of my depth on that. And then I have to also figure out what's around. And I don't mean putting a background in, but in terms of color, I can really just make it black. And that might be really dynamic to have black that fades toward the discharge of that gun. That might be really cool. Okay, looking at the time, it is almost coming up on 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, which means I'm getting up on 2 hours, which is okay. Obviously, if someone wanted to bail, they would have just bailed. If you're watching on the replay, you can fast. You can put things on a faster speed for your listening pleasure, which is a good idea. So obviously, I'm not going to finish this while we're here together. But I will, when I do finish coloring it, I will post images of this to the previously in X-Men Instagram account. Yes, I'm using this Marvel Legends figure as a model for his fist. Just to keep it simple enough. All right. That'll do. If I really wanted to play, I would turn that arm over to see what muscles are here. But they're being flexed in different ways. When you pull back, when you cock your arm back like this, you're flexing different pieces. So a Marvel Legends figure is almost like a permaflex of every muscle group at all times, which makes them not great models for that purpose. But I do love having them around. They're really great for like when you want to see what happens to a costume. When you turn a character in 3D, costumes really move, and it helps figure out what's visible and what's not. So I love them for that. This will also help me figure out what to do with Wolverine's mask here, because I want to get a little closer to having his face look good. It sounds so strange, but I find that there is something really appealing about having at least the character looking at you kind of correctly. Like if there's a mood that they convey when you look at your own drawing, it feels like a little bit like they're at least starting to act the part. And it kind of creates its own momentum to want to keep going when they start to look like themselves. You start to hear their voice a little bit and kind of want to continue serving them and get them to come out right. That sounds a little strange, I know, but when you're drawing superheroes, I think you have to do a little bit of acting in your imagination. They have to be a little bit present with you. And it's fun. His knuckles are under here. Gary Shipman, how you doing? Allie says, I never thought about if the shoulders were metal. I always thought It was like stylized cap sleeves. Like this starchy cotton, which doesn't make any sense for fighting the baddies. Wolverine's costume overall doesn't make any sense for fighting baddies. He really should just be wearing whatever he wants to wear. His suit always can get wrecked anyway. So I was wondering what your approach for the gun blast was going to be. We'll have to live in suspense. Yeah, my approach is often to delay. So maybe, like different artists, do you do something where it's exploding coming out? Do you do something where it's sort of just that white heat of it creating all the light? I'm a fan of dramatic lighting, so I'm tempted to have black everywhere and then have it encroaching on the white, so that everything around will be black. I think that actually will look really dramatic, and then having his reds and his yellows coming in out of the black might be really exciting. And that's closer to my style anyway. Okay, here's what I'll do. Let's do a little bit of that. Let's just put black in all around and see how that looks. It messes me up a tiny bit right there because I put the white in and I can't redo that yellow down, but it's okay. So I'm going to grab some ink and we're going to just like cover this cover in some black, and then I'll leave it at that point for the broadcast tonight because it'll really give us a sense of what it looks like. Okay. Aaron Broverman, dude, how are you? I just had to stop in for a second, but going to bed. Looks good, man. This movie is going to be great. Aaron, you know who's great? You are great. I have not seen Aaron Broverman in way too long. I hope you and your family are doing well. And Aaron has been a big influence on me and my comic book making and my love of the Canadian comics scene. Aaron hosted a podcast for years, and I listened to all those episodes when he first got started in making comics as a way to like introduce myself to who all the players were in the Greater Toronto area, especially. And Aaron's podcast was super helpful for helping me understand the politics and the history of comics in Toronto and everyone who was there. And Aaron is a wonderful supporter of comics of all kinds too. And I'm pretty sure, Aaron, you were the one who introduced me to Cartoonist Kayfabe back when it was first dropping with those episodes just focused on Wizard Magazine. So I'm eternally grateful to Aaron. One thing I need to change before I dump a bunch of ink on this, I think I need to lower my table so it's flat so I can put my ink on the table. So it won't, well, let's take a risk. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Change a few things. We're going to grab this. I'm going to put that in it. So I've put, you can see there. My table is on an angle, not as dramatic as it looks here, but it's on a little bit of an angle. So we'll do that. And I'm going to open this up and get a brush. And we're going to go to town for a couple minutes. A bunch of brushes kicking around. I don't need a fancy one to do this part because not some serious detail work. Chuck, how are you doing, dude? It's 11 o'clock. If anyone has to go, I totally understand. Maybe we can talk Jason to doing this again fairly soon. Oh my God. I do have a stack of these covers to do. I have 2 more that are X-Men, and I'm happy to do it. I just would hate to make anyone, I don't know what I'm trying to say. And why did I start here? Don't even ask. I don't have a reason. One thing that does happen with using this tool on this paper is black ink this paper doesn't absorb beautifully. I probably should have done this in a marker instead. And it's going to dry all weird. It might actually require a couple coats, and that might make the cover kind of crunchy. But we're living and learning, so who cares? And then you have to take the chance, like, do I try and do the detail along, like, do I go right up next to Deadpool here, or do I come in with a different size brush with more control in a few minutes when it dries, or do I take a chance? Here, I'll show you what I mean. If I make a mistake, so be it. Do I trust my own hand here? I'm more worried about my eyes than my hand, truthfully. So when it comes to trusting brushes, for those of you out there who aren't brush slingers, ink slingers, it's all about the tip of your brush and if you can get a point. If you don't have a point, stop using that brush. I do not have a point. This brush sucks. So I'm taking unnecessary risk by going up close to my figures. I don't have to do this. I can totally go in with a brush pen that has a fixed felt tip. I don't have to do anything risky like what I am doing. But I just want to live dangerously for a minute. Makes me feel alive. I could have done all sorts of things to make this cover. I could have choose a shape for the black to be, as opposed to just hitting it with solid black. But again, we're going to live and learn. We're going to try it. I'm inspired. Maybe it's taking me in the wrong direction. Maybe it's not. Leave room for Wolverine's other claws there. So this is the kind of thing. See that piece of his boot, which like why does he wear boots like that? It makes no sense. I like the triangle, the point motif in his costume. I think his costume has always been great, but if we're going to try and apply any kind of sense to it, it just doesn't. It falls apart. He doesn't need to wear a mask. He doesn't need any of this stuff. So all the black that I've applied to him, I applied like solidly. It now needs a change. So I'm not sure what I'll do. And, in terms of success with this, if I will always eventually, see flaws in my own work, which is fine. Part of growth and learning is to think what you did the other day wasn't as good. Just, again, totally fine. If I sell this, I'll go to a convention, and if this sells to some very, friendly comic book lover, then I'll be happy with it. It'll make me feel much better that someone's getting some joy out of it, like if I sell it at a convention to a fan of Wolverine and Deadpool, not a fan of me, but a fan of Wolverine and Deadpool. Someone just enjoys the piece and wants to have a one of a kind. Look how this is not getting absorbed at all. Yeah, it's not meant for, this ink is not meant for this kind of cover at all, this paper. So if someone does get some pleasure out of it and buys it, then whatever I do to it, I'm gonna feel completely good about it. I won't worry about it as long as someone enjoys it. If it sits around in my portfolio or my stock at these events for more than a year, I'm gonna have insecurity about it and a little bit of dread, and that will be fine too. My art has really changed a lot since I started, and people are still buying things that I drew, like comics that I drew in 2017. And I try not to think about it when they pick the book up off the shelf or off the table. I'm like, oh, I can't believe someone's reading. It's, but if someone enjoys it, that really is what matters. So if someone ends up picking this one up within the next year, I'll feel really good about it forever. And if there is something really good about it, like if I can't stop thinking about the image, I can always redraw it, make a print out of it, or another kind of custom piece. And if I really wanted to, I could buy this exact blank again and do it again. Man, you can see how that's actually dry here, okay? But that's how it dried. It's not great paper. There's a reason most people who do sketch covers fill it with marker as opposed to crazy people who try it in ink. Like, this was an insane choice. But maybe a second coat. Should I wait for it to fully cure? Yes. Yes, I should. But we just did it anyway. Yeah, it's not looking good. But I think that's the direction that I'm going to go in. Like, I have a choice now. I have no choice. I actually might keep it in black and white because it'll allow me to attack with white media. If I add color, I can't color over white media with like yellow marker, for instance. So if I keep doing this in black and white, what am I doing? Leave it alone. This brush is not good enough for doing this edging. Anyway, let's leave it there for tonight because this thing needs to dry and it is late and you are wonderful and patient. And so many of you have stayed here. I mean, Allie, like you're a trooper to have been here the whole time. And I greatly appreciate your company. I really do. Giving me someone to think I'm talking to, it helps me relax a lot. And people in my house must think I'm crazy. My kids are like, he's just alone in there talking to nobody. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, what comments did I miss? And before I wipe my face, I have to look to see if I have ink on my hands. So Aaron was there. Chuck says still going. Allie says, yeah, the episode's been a doozy. You had to work. Yes. So we'll hopefully, maybe I'll do another one soon. We'll see. We'll see if we like the way this one turns out. I also don't want to burn bridges with you guys. Like if people are really wanting, obviously us to talk comics, it was really hard for me to, I can't do an episode of the show as regular this way because my mind is in another place. I'm using a different part of my brain. But while Chris is away, I think next week he's away too. So we'll see what the response is online. If I'm getting positive feedback, I'm happy to do another one, I think. And if, let's say, people are wanting something different, I'm happy to try something different too. Really, this is about you and me, not just me. So I can talk to myself in my studio anytime, and I don't need you to be here to do that. So if you're going to be here, let's do something that you're going to enjoy so that we both find something pleasurable about the experience. Is this a commission? No, this is, I did it for fun, and I'm pretty confident I'm pretty arrogant thinking it will sell. When I finish it, it will be definitely better than it is now. And there are so many Deadpool fans out there that they often will buy some original stuff. So I'm confident the fan base is there and someone will buy it. If I just price it low enough, it'll go fast. If I keep the price high, it'll probably stay on my table a little longer. So we shall see. Ali says, I'm literally over here gasping out loud when Jason lives dangerously and swoops the brush in super close to the character. Yeah, it's not a great choice. But again, if I leave it black and white, I can correct any mistake I make. That is a steady left hand. Thank you. I should have brought a better brush to do that part. Chuck says, I'm 100% here for Allie's play-by-play coverage of Jason doing art. Thanks. I'm here for it too. Awesome job, dude. Thank you. Matters to you. Thank you very much. And Allie's thanking you too, Chuck. I'm actually kind of digging the texture of the ink from the first pass. It doesn't look good. I mean, the lights are bright. If I turn them off, I wonder what you can still see. Because there are other lights on in the room. But obviously the glare we're getting from my big lamp changes it quite a bit. Should definitely wait for the paper will get soggy, dude. What do you mean will get soggy? So we look on the inside. It's thick, but it's imprinted on this side. Yeah, it is. It's a little soggy. And here it's actually, there's like a bump of ink that, here, let's just get that off. Just go in there and flatten it with my dirty fingers. Okay, cool. thought the ink drying effect was intentional until you said different. Oh, it's not intentional. It's just, that's ink. I mean, some paper is made much more to absorb ink than others, and this is not a very absorbent paper. So like a Canson Bristol, 300-pound Bristol, absorbs beautifully, and I would love to work on that instead. So, but that's not what this is. In theory, I could actually cut a piece of artboard to the size of a comic and put a really good fold in it and then sell it as if it is, like do artisanal blank covers. You know what I mean? I have a decent paper cutter. I could do that, and then I get to work on the kind of artboard that you want to work on. So it'd be like an extra thick cover over top of. That actually might be a really fun idea. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Ali says, awesome. Thank you, Ali. You're very, very generous. I appreciate it. And the lovely original folks at the stream, this was a wonderful night. Thanks for braving it. My pleasure. And that brings us to an end of another episode. Previously in X-Men, I'm not going to number this one. I want to keep the sequencing, I guess. This would be episode 131, but we really didn't do a lot of X-Men. We didn't talk issues. This really is my pleasure to draw and chat with you, but it only worked because you in the chat were very positive and supportive, but that you were here. If there was no one, I wouldn't even know where to start talking. And talking isn't usually a problem for me, but I was quite not nervous, not anxious, but I was concerned that there would be a lot of dead air. So I really appreciate it. So thank you very much for hanging out with me. Next week, I think Chris also is not here again. So if people want to see, I'll show the results of this one. But if people want to see another sketch cover from scratch or inking process from scratch, I'm okay to do it. I just need to know that it's something that you want, because I don't want to tire out or exhaust the viewership that you have delivered to me. So thank you for that again. Go see, not like I need to advertise the movie, but I hope you get to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm going Thursday night. I hope you get to see it too, so we can talk about it soon. And we get to just share in the joy that is an awesome superhero movie. And oh man, we get to see Wolverine again. This is going to be so much fun. So have a wonderful night, and stay Xy. Be nice to each other, and I'll see you again next week. Everyone, cheers, and you were wonderful. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful week. Deadpool and Wolverine, man.